What's going on, guys? Dropadooski here. Today we're going to do our very first crafting guide for Path of Exile. Now, for a lot of brand new players, crafting can be very intimidating and very complex. What we're going to do today is start with the most basic items we possibly can for you guys to craft, and even these items can turn a fairly large profit for you at the beginning of the league. Now, what we will be focusing on today is Flasks and Jewels. We're also going to cover the currencies that you'll need to use in order to make them worth more in value, and also other tools out there that can help you to either price or understand what prefixes and suffixes you're going to want to target in order to make something as valuable as possible. So let's jump right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about today is flasks. Now, the reason we use flask as a starting point for brand new crafters is because they can only have one prefix and one suffix. Now, when comparing it to other items in the game, most items can have 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes, making them much harder to target when crafting. With flasks, you only get 1. Now, before we start making items magic and targeting those prefixes and suffixes, the first thing I want to cover is quality. Quality is super important, and it's very, very useful to not only the value of your item, but when you make one for yourself, the amount of usefulness you get out of a given flask. So this is a base ruby flask. If we take our glass blower baubles here, and hit a normal ruby flask, it will increase its quality by 5. And what that does is increase the duration that this flask lasts from 4 seconds to 4.2. Now, if you max that out, which it maxes at 20, it's going to get it all the way up to 5 seconds, right? So one thing I want to note here in quality quickly before we move on to the next portion is if the flask is already magic or blue, then using your glass blowers will only increase it by 2. So in order to maximize the quality, it will take you 10 of them instead of the 4. So before you start making items magic, just remember, use them early to get the most out of it. So at max, it's 4.8 seconds for the ruby flask. Now we'll start targeting our prefixes and suffixes. Now, before you do this, you're going to want to look at PoE Affix. PoE Affix is a website that lists all the available prefixes and suffixes for any given item in the game. Super useful. I'll put it in the description below. Find flasks here, and you can see what things can potentially roll on any given flask. What I like to target specifically are things that give me more duration or use less of the flask every time I use it. So if we're targeting those 2 things, it would be, experimenters, which you can see here, or chemists. Chemist is very, very nice. And then we're going to use something that is very beneficial to us at any given point in the game. Since we're using diamond, it will do any of its suffix effects for as long as its duration, right? So we want to make sure and target something very useful. So either removes bleed, or removes burning, or keeps you immune to freeze. All of those are very, very nice. So with this diamond flask, in order to make it magic, we're going to use a transmutation. This transmutation upgrades a normal item to a magic item. Boom. Now it's a diamond flask of warding, right? So when reading this, you can see right now, warding is my suffix, right? So immune to curses. If we go back to PoE Affix and look for immune to curses, warding, it's right here, but it does not have any base prefix, right? In an instance where you don't get a prefix, you can use an org of augmentation to add that prefix to the item. So the reason I had this currency here and wanted to cover it is with flasks specifically, sometimes you're not going to get both stats. So for this, warding isn't a bad grab. Curse immunity is great. We're looking to get that chemists here, chemists or experimenters or something. Use the augment, boom. 1 augment, we got our chemist, right? So if we take a look at the base value of this flask before we did anything to it, without the quality, without anything, we're going to take a look at this. Let's make sure there's no quality on it. We'll do a search on diamond flask. It's worth 1 alteration, right? 1 alteration, 1 alchemy, very, very low value. Now we've got ourselves a Chemist's Diamond Flask of Warding at 20 quality. So I'm going to go ahead and use my PoE trade macro here, Control-Alt-D, and what we have to do is just click Use Item Base. That's going to grab that it's a Diamond Flask, that it's Chemist of Warding, and we'll open on PoE trade. Now it's worth 7 to 8 chaos. That simple. At the beginning of next league, when flasks are dropping on the ground, if you're a new player and you want to start making some currency, collect those flasks, quality those flasks, and start targeting prefixes and suffixes. You can make a ton more chaos, and it's a lot of fun to do. Before we finish up on flasks, I want to cover Orbs of Alteration. Now, we ended up getting lucky on this Diamond Flask, so we don't really want to change it. But if we hadn't got lucky, we'll set that aside and make this one here magic. If we hadn't got lucky with this, we would want to change this to keep trying to hit something that is worth chaos or potentially useful for us. In order to do so, you're going to want to use an Orb of Alteration. Orbs of Alteration reforge the magic properties of this item. So we can hit it once. Now it's a Chemist Ruby Flask of Heat, right? It's changed from its previous prefix and suffix to this new prefix and suffix. And anytime you do this, if you're interested to see if it's now worth more or a value, double check it, price check it again. Boom, 2, 5, 6. This is now instantly worth some chaos. If you don't like that value, then you can hit it again and keep doing that over and over until you get what you're looking for. Now, quickly remember while you're doing this, don't forget while you're changing the stats, always, if you don't get the prefix or the suffix, use those augmentations. Now it's Experimenter's Flask of Heat. We can keep pricing these out, keep checking their values, and get something that's worth a little bit more. It's that simple. Get those flasks out there on the market. The next thing we're going to talk about is jewel crafting. Now, jewel crafting was very, very profitable my first league, and it's the only thing that I focused. Now, when it comes to jewels, there's a couple things you want to have set up before you start crafting right away. You're going to hit escape, go to your options, and under UI, you want to make sure Advanced Mod Descriptions is checked. Advanced Mod Descriptions lets you look at the tier of a given affix on an item, right? So when I hold Alt on this, now with that selected, you can see this is tier 6, tier 3, tier 7, tier 5, etc. Tiers are very important when it comes to crafting, and you're going to want to have this on all the time now that you guys are jumping into the crafting portion of this game. Now with eyes specifically, you want to keep in mind a couple of different things before getting started. When you look at PoE affix, every single one of these eyes does something different. So if we look at Murderous as an example, Murderous is going to do swords, claws, daggers, staffs, maces, whereas if we go to Hypnotic, which is what we're focusing today, you're going to get a lot of things that impact spell damage. So for caster specifically, Hypnotic is going to be what you're going to want to target. Now, I stuck with eyes my very first league. So Murderous, Searching, Hypnotic, Ghastly. You can also alternatively craft Cobalt, Crimson, Viridian Jewels. These are very, very good as well. But in a lot of instances when I was brand new at this, I would run into more stats. So you get 4 instead of 3, things like this. It just made it more difficult for me to price check. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I just focused on Murderous, Searching, and Hypnotic as they were really easily accessible in the Incursion League with the Xana modifiers on the map. So you can use either one of these. Today we're going to use Hypnotic for our example. So as we learned with our flasks, we're going to be utilizing the same currencies, and then the other new extended currencies for a more difficult item to craft we'll go over as we get there. So taking this Hypnotic Eye, we're going to make it into a magic item with our transmute, right? And it has a max life roll, which is good. What I like to do when setting out to do these eyes is look for a very specific combination of stats. So it's either going to be damage, life, or triple damage, right? In some instances with high tier rolls, so as we had just set that up, we can hold Alt and see this is a tier 3 prefix for life. 1 is the highest you can get. I don't know what it is, 12 or 13 is the lowest, right? You can go really far down. So if this had been a tier 7 or tier 8 life roll, then I would re-roll it immediately. We want to stay in that 3 to to 1 range, right? Now, this is a tier 3 max life, so we're going to see what we get with an augmentation. We hit it once. Now it has a tier 1 cold damage to spells roll. So we're doing very, very well at this point. This is fitting the criteria for the jewel that I'm searching for. It has a damage roll and a life roll. At this point, we're going to start using some different currencies than what we saw in Flasks. Regal Orbs, upgrade a magic item to a rare item, or make it from blue to yellow. This is going to give it 1 more affix, and hopefully it's a nice damage roll or something very useful in the utility area. So we hit it, 12 to 17 physical damage to spells while dual wielding. Now, physical damage to spells, a lot of times spells are going to be what? Arc is lightning, Scorching Ray is fire, etc., etc. So physical isn't typically something I want to see, but since we're at the point where we've regaled, we might as well price check it. Price checking is your best friend when you're just starting out at crafting, so you can start to get a feel for what to look for without having to go and look up every single item. So with the PoE trade macro installed, I will have the link to my tools guide in the description below. You can Control Alt D here, select all the modifiers, and by just a rule to make things a little wider, just remove the maximum. That means if somebody rolled potentially higher than you, those stats will also show up so you can at least get some results. Open on PoE trade, and this one probably won't return much, but this one here, physical damage to spells while dual wielding, I still don't think is something I would be focusing personally, but there are a couple up that are looking really good. We've got 40. We've got 1 week ago at 45. We've got 1 week ago at 32. So based on these timelines, in my mind, I'm saying this is sitting way too long at this price. In my opinion, I would price this pretty low. So I would maybe put this at 20 to 25 and see if I get any movement on it. So what that means by movement, I am one of those players that plays in the mindset that, 30C to me now is better than 100C to me a day before the league ends, right? So I want churn and burn on that currency, right? I want it out. So rather than, if we look at those prices again, 32 is kind of the lowest that's in the same range as mine. I could put it at 31. No, I'm going to put it at 20. You know what I mean? That way, if somebody comes over here to look and this isn't potentially the jewel that they really, really wanted, but, it's only 20C compared to all the other ones, I'll take it. That's the kind of mindset that I roll with. So if we were to go ahead and just throw this up, what I'll tell you is on my next rule with these is I let this sit for a day to 2 days maximum. Okay, if it sits at that price for a day or two and does not sell, I come back over every 2 days right before I start running my maps. I look through, lower the price, lower the price, lower the price. Just a little bit, not a lot. You don't have to cut it in half or anything like that. You make the decision. You do what's comfortable for you, but I would definitely lower the price on it to try and get some more movement and some more momentum. Now, I will just demonstrate this to you quickly if we want to upgrade one of these other eyes. Now, Ghastly Eyes, I know right away, these are going to do stuff for minions, but we can just double check and verify. So if we go to Ghastly's, we can see that minions have chance to blind. Minions have, this is going to give me minions deal additional, minions fire, cold, lightning, chaos, etc. This is for your, necromancers. So if you wanted to craft a Ghastly Eye quickly, and we're not going to focus on this too much because I just want to demonstrate utilizing chaos. You can use chaos for crafting if you're rolling in them, you know what I mean? And you don't necessarily want to go through this whole process of regal and scour and do all that. If we hit one that we wanted to stop on and to potentially see if we get lucky, and we don't, right? So it's like, this isn't really good. We want to scour, then transmute, then augment, then alt. We don't have to do that. With chaos, it reforges a rare item into a new random. So you could just sit here and spam your chaos to get what you're potentially looking for. It's not my preferred style of crafting, but I definitely wanted to give it to you as an example. That way, if you stockpile a ton and you want to just churn some out a little more quickly than our other route, you can do that. That's pretty much it with jewels. I am going to put a cheat sheet in the description. That way you guys can follow it while you're getting started. Remember, with these items, The higher tier, or the lower tier, I guess we'll say, because tier 1 is best. If you're always looking when you're checking these things, okay, tier 3 looking pretty good, tier 1 looking pretty good. These are in that range, right? I like to look at things that are between, 3 to 1. Now, speaking specifically to the item level, just briefly before we wrap, the higher the eye level, the higher likely it is to roll better tiers. So when you start getting to end game, collect those eyes and those jewels. Eye level 83 plus is best, but if you're starting out in a new league and you get an eye drop in a T1 map, it's a brand new league, man. Craft it. I would craft it immediately. The nice thing about jewels is every build in the game, as far as I know, is going to utilize jewels in either an abyssal socket or in their tree. Everybody needs them. Everybody wants them. If you get good at crafting these things, you can slay. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I really hope that it's helpful. Let me know in the comments how we can improve these going forward, or if you really like the layout. We're going to do a bunch of these. So this is starting with the bare bones basics, flasks and jewels, and then we're going to step into things like belts and rings, and then we'll jump into eventually like multi-modding wands. I made this, we'll do helms, we're going to do fossils, all of it, guys. Everybody, thank you guys so much for checking this out. Don't forget to stop by my Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/Dropaduski. We're on 5 days a week. Currently, we're working on Cast on Crits, Blast Rain Arc. It's been a hell of a good league. We've made over 40x so far just from crafting, and also sold a 40x Watcher's Eye. Everybody, thank you guys. Good luck. And remember, if you take time to practice crafting now, at the beginning of next league, you're going to come out of the gate making way more currency than you did during this one. Good luck out there, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Peace.